was relaxing under his spruce tree when he heard the door open. He saw a white fox anxiously come in the room. Scoot sat up and introduced himself. The white fox returned the introduction. Her name was Snowdrop. Very quickly, Scoot realized that Snowdrop didn't feel too comfortable in her new home, so Scoot decided to make it his personal mission to make sure that she felt safe in this place. He showed her the cave, the spruce tree, and the pond. It seemed that Snowdrop was getting more comfortable in the new setting. Scoot was happy that his new friend was happy. It had been over 3 months since he had been brought here, and he was starting to get lonely. So he was happy that he finally had someone to share his thoughts with. Back in the plains, the small family were having a really hard time. Sunlight had come down with a sickness, and Nature was suffering from depression from not being able to find Kiro. Tama was left to train himself, until one day. Tama was hunting in the fields when he stumbled upon a cream-colored fox with a large scar across its shoulder. The cream fox noticed Tama staring at him. He introduced himself. His name was Tornado. Somehow, this fox had known that Tama's family was struggling, and Tornado offered to help them. Tama was hesitant in bringing this large fox into his family's plains, but he knew how much they needed help, so he accepted the cream fox into the plains. Sunlight accepted Tornado, but Nature was a little more cautious. She didn't trust him. But Tama told her that she was being paranoid, and Tornado was kind and could help him train. After some convincing, Tama finally got his mother to believe that Tornado was there to help the small family, and that Tornado could help him. Tama was thrilled to have someone who could actually help him with training. He had a plan to kill every wolf he saw. He hadn't told anyone about these plans. He was afraid that no one would understand his desire to destroy the very source that made his brother disappear. He was going to start his mission soon, but now wasn't the time. He was too small and too weak to fend off any wolf, but he knew Tornado would help with that. Tama leapt on the chicken, killing it with a swift bite to the neck. Tornado praised him for the neat catch. Tama picked up his catch and walked back to Tornado. For the past week, his mentor had been helping him so much with training. He now knew basic fighting moves and was decent at hunting. When they got back to the plains, Tama noticed that his father looked even worse than when him and Tornado left for hunting. His breaths came in rapid and shallow form. Nature was curled up against her mate with a sad expression on her face. Tama asked Tornado if there was any way he could make his father better. The small group had been giving him herbs day after day, but it seemed like nothing helped Sunlight recover at all. Tornado sighed and stayed silent for a few moments until lifting his head and announcing that he had an idea. He told Nature and Tama to look after Sunlight, and if anything happened, to run after him. Then Tornado disappeared into the trees. Hours later, Tornado came back with a small silver fox, around Tama's age. Tama felt star-stricken. The fox was so beautiful. Tama shook his head. "No," he said to himself. "You need to rid the world of all its filth. There is no time to spend time mooning over another fox." But just maybe, he could also have a mate while executing his plan. He had never planned to have a mate, but that was before he met this fox. Tama asked Tornado about the she-fox. He explained that the silver fox was his daughter, and that she had incredible healing skills. Tornado said her name was Echoheart. Even her name was beautiful. Then Echoheart got to work, checking Sunlight's pulse, form of breathing, everything. After Echoheart was done, she said that Sunlight had a very serious breathing condition, one that would have him had terrible breathing and make him very sick. Tama felt a chill run down his spine. He asked Echoheart if there was any way to save his father. Sunlight had been a staple in Tama's life before he became sick. He couldn't die. Tama wouldn't let it happen, but it was already too late. Echoheart shook her head silently. She explained that Sunlight couldn't be saved and he would be in pain and misery for the rest of his life, unless he was put out of it early. Nature looked at Sunlight, and Sunlight weakly nodded. Tama felt his heart drop down to his stomach. He knew what that meant. He wasn't stupid. He knew his parents wanted to send the message without telling Tama directly. Sunlight was going to have to be killed by one of the group members. Scoot lay down around Snowdrop. "Hey, Scoot," said the small white fox. Scoot turned his head towards her. Snowdrop asked him if he thought the no-fur was going to turn them both into rugs. "Oh, no, no!" Scoot explained that if that was the no-fur's intention, he would have killed Scoot the second he saw him. Snowdrop nodded and said he was right. He laid her head down and began softly snoring. Scoot laid down his head too, letting himself drift into sleep. Scoot opened his eyes to only find himself surrounded by large, intimidating walls of fire. He screamed to Snowdrop to come on, but it was already too late. She was already engulfed in flames. Scoot wished he could cover his ears to block out the blood-curdling screams coming from her. But he didn't have time. He jumped outside through a hole in the wall that had already been burnt out. He ran towards his family's planes. Surely they would help him. But when he got there, all he found were small patches of fur and large patches of blood. Scoot stopped himself from throwing up. Suddenly, a brown wolf stepped out of the bushes. It had blood splattered all over itself. It was the wolf who had killed his family. But before Scoot could do anything, the brown wolf lunged towards him, and everything went black. Scoot woke up with a jolt, but everything was normal. The walls weren't on fire, and more importantly, Snowdrop was not on fire. And his family was not dead. His family? What if they really were dead somewhere? He shook his head. Tama was strong, and Sunlight had always been good at hunting and fighting. Scoot knew that none of his family members would die anytime soon. Echoheart said that the family members could see Sunlight one last time, and then he must be killed. Nature went first, and then moments later, came back with tears flooding down her face. Then Tama went. His father's breathing was so bad, he wanted to run out of there and pretend like it wasn't really happening. But he stayed strong and forced himself to sit. Tama nodded and said he would, but just as he was about to walk away, Sunlight said one more thing. He said that if Kiro really was still alive, find him and bring him back home to the plains. Tama nodded, forcing himself not to cry. He had been trying not to think about his brother. Then Tornado stepped by Tama. He said it was time. Tornado lifted his claw. "You might want to look away for this," Tornado said, but Tama wanted to look into his father's alive eyes for as long as possible, even if for a few seconds. Before Tornado swung, Sunlight gave Tama the weakest nod and mouthed the words, "Find him." Then Tornado swung, and Sunlight was gone. Then a thought struck through Tama's mind. What if he had the same breathing condition as Sunlight had had? No, he couldn't. He didn't want to die like that. Plus, it would get in the way of his plan. He promised himself that even if he did have that condition, he would still kill every wolf that he saw and bring Kiro home.